My name is Dorothy Lopez. I'm 29 years old, and for most of my 20s, I believe love was simple. Not easy, but simple. To me, love was about showing up, being steady, doing the little things every day, even when nobody noticed. I thought that if you stayed loyal, supportive, emotionally available, eventually you would be valued for it. That was before Jake. I met him at a friend's birthday dinner. I still remember the exact moment. I was sitting at the end of the table, picking at my pasta, when laughter erupted across from me. Jake. His presence was magnetic, loud, charming, almost too bright for the room. He told a story about missing a flight in New York and somehow turning it into a comedy show for the gate attendants. Everyone leaned in. Everyone laughed. Me, I didn't. I just smiled politely. He noticed. Later that night, when the group drifted toward the bar, Jake found his way next to me. He teased, "So, you're the only one who didn't laugh at my story." Brutal. I shrugged. It wasn't that funny. He stared at me like I was some puzzle he couldn't immediately solve. Finally, someone honest. He usually went for girls who were untouchable, glittery, reckless, the kind who turned heads when they walked into a room. He admitted that later. I wasn't like them. I was quieter, observant, someone who'd rather listen than compete for attention. And to him, that was refreshing. We started seeing each other casually. Coffee dates turned into long walks. Movie nights blurred into sleepovers. Before long, he was spending more nights at my apartment than his own. And then the lockdowns hit. What was supposed to be temporary turned into permanence. He brought his guitar, half his closet, a few stray mugs from his place, and soon my one bedroom wasn't mine anymore. It was ours. At first, I loved it. The shared meals, the routine of cooking breakfast while he strummed nonsense chords, the laughter echoing off the quiet walls. He had this energy that lit up every corner. Where I was grounded, he was restless. Where I planned, he improvised. We balanced each other, or so I thought. Jake wasn't just magnetic with me. He was magnetic everywhere. He could walk into a room of strangers and leave with 5 new friends. People gravitated toward him. He flirted without even meaning to, or maybe he always meant to. I was the opposite. My circle was small and intentional. I didn't need to be the center of every room. I thought that made us complementary. I wanted to believe we were good for each other, and I worked hard to prove it. When Jake lost his job, I stayed up late rewriting his resume. I prepped him for interviews, role-playing questions until he rolled his eyes. When his credit card debt ballooned, I paid it off. $1,200, gone in one click, because the stress in his eyes was unbearable. He called me his finance angel. I laughed, thinking it was affectionate. He used to say I was too nice for my own good, that I never got angry, even when I should. At the time, I wore that like a badge of honor. I thought it meant I was mature, in control. Looking back, it meant something else entirely. He didn't take me seriously. The first red flag was Rachel. She was his old friend, the kind he used to hook up with, but swore it was never serious. She lived in another city now, allegedly in a relationship, but she and Jake kept in touch. Instagram likes, random FaceTimes, late-night texts that made him smile at his phone and say nothing. I brought it up once, carefully. "Jake, do you think it's healthy, staying this close with her?" His jaw tightened. "Dorothy, I'm not cutting people off just because you're insecure." The word hung in the air, insecure. It silenced me. I didn't want to be that girlfriend, the jealous, controlling stereotype, so I dropped it. Convinced myself I was overthinking. Convinced myself that if Jake was here with me, it meant something. But slowly cracks began to show. He became protective of his phone, angling it away when I walked by. He'd step into the bathroom mid-call, laughing low into the receiver. His texts grew shorter, his presence more distant. We'd be watching a movie together, but he'd scroll half-engaged through his feed. One night, I asked softly, "Are you happy with me?" He sighed, eyes glued to the screen. "Honestly, I feel stuck, like we're just in a routine, comfortable, not passionate." The words sank like stones in my stomach. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling while his steady breathing filled the dark. I felt the invisible distance between us widening, a canyon neither of us wanted to name. I should have seen it coming. The wake-up call came weeks later at a casual dinner with friends. 6 or 7 of us, wine glasses half full, music humming in the background. I stepped outside to take a call from my mom. When I came back in, I froze in the hallway. I couldn't see them, but I heard them. Jake's friend said casually, "So, are you actually going to tell Dorothy about Rachel, or just hope it fizzles again?" The room went silent. Then Jake's voice, lower, "Not yet. No point if Rachel disappears again like last time. But if she sticks this time, I'm done pretending." I stood in the shadows, heart pounding so loud I thought they'd hear it. My fingers trembled, but my face remained calm when I walked back into the room. He looked up, smiled at me like nothing was wrong. I smiled back, but inside something cracked. That night, I didn't sleep. My brain replayed the words, looping them until dawn. If she sticks this time, I'm done pretending. How long had I been his disguise? How much of the past 2 years had been an act? I told myself I needed proof, that maybe I misheard, that maybe he was just venting, but deep down, I already knew. And the proof came sooner than I ever imagined. After that night at the dinner party, I couldn't unhear the words, "If Rachel sticks this time, I'm done pretending." The phrase lived in my head, echoing like a bell I couldn't silence. Still, I stayed quiet. I wanted to believe maybe I misunderstood. Maybe Jake just exaggerated to look cool in front of his friends. But once you hear something like that, you start noticing all the little things you'd been trying to ignore. The phone face down on the counter, the long showers with muffled laughter behind the door, the sudden smirk when a notification lit up his screen. Rachel, always Rachel. One night, I tried to bridge the gap. He was sprawled on the couch, eyes glued to his phone, while I sat curled on the other end with a book I hadn't turned a page in for 20 minutes. "Jake," I said softly. He hummed but didn't look up. "Do you still talk to Rachel a lot?" That got his attention. His head snapped up, jaw tight. "Seriously, Dorothy? We're doing this again?" I swallowed. "I'm not accusing, I'm just asking." He set his phone down harder than necessary. "I told you before, I'm not cutting people out just because you're insecure." There it was again. That word, insecure, like a blade aimed at my chest. I bit back the urge to argue. Instead, I said, "It's not about insecurity, it's about boundaries." Jake rolled his eyes and leaned back. "Boundaries, right. So what? Am I supposed to delete half my contacts because my girlfriend can't handle it?" My girlfriend. The way he said it stung, like a label he was tired of carrying. I didn't reply. Silence stretched between us until he muttered, "God, you're suffocating me," and went back to scrolling. That night, I lay awake, staring at his profile in the dim light. His face was calm, peaceful, almost boyish in sleep, and yet I felt miles away from him. I wondered if he dreamt of me, or of her. A week later, the cracks widened. We went to his friend Megan's place for wine and tapas. Just a handful of us, nothing formal. The night buzzed with chatter, music low in the background. I excused myself to the bathroom, and as I walked back down the hallway, I heard voices drift from the kitchen. "Megan, so, what's the plan with Rachel? Are you actually going to tell Dorothy, or keep stalling?" My breath caught. I froze just out of sight. "Jake, relax. There's no rush. If Rachel disappears again like she always does, what's the point? But if she sticks around this time..." He trailed off, and the sound of ice clinking in a glass filled the silence. Megan chuckled. "Brutal, poor Dorothy." My hands went cold. Poor Dorothy. I forced myself to keep walking, to step back into the living room like I hadn't just overheard my boyfriend debating whether I was worth the truth. When I walked in, Jake looked up from the couch, smiling wide. "Hey, babe, everything okay?" I smiled back, lips stretched into something that felt foreign on my face. "Yeah, fine." But inside, my stomach churned. The following days were unbearable. Every laugh he stifled into his phone, every notification he cleared too quickly, every vague, just a friend text, it all felt like confirmation. I tried to confront him once more carefully. We were cooking dinner, pasta, his favorite. The steam fogged the window, and he was humming to himself when I said, "Jake, I feel like you're somewhere else lately." He stopped stirring. "Somewhere else? Like you're distracted, like your mind's not here with me." His lips pressed into a line, maybe because it's not. I blinked. "What does that mean?" He sighed, dropped the spoon onto the counter, and leaned against it. "Look, Dorothy, we've been in this routine. Same dinners, same nights. I don't know if this is passion anymore, or if we're just comfortable." My chest tightened. "Comfort isn't bad, Jake. Comfort is stability." He shook his head. "Stability feels like a cage sometimes." The words hit me like a slap. I wanted to argue, to remind him of everything I'd done for him, late nights rewriting his resume, paying off his debt, standing by him through every failure. But the words caught in my throat. I couldn't beg him to see my worth. Not again. So instead, I turned off the stove and whispered, "Then maybe you should figure out what freedom looks like to you." We ate in silence that night. The distance grew unbearable. I started noticing small, chilling details. His shirt smelling faintly of a different perfume, his sudden excuses for being late, the way he angled his laptop away from me. I tried to convince myself I was imagining it, that maybe all couples hit rough patches, that maybe I was the problem. But then came the night that confirmed everything. It was late, close to midnight. I walked into the kitchen to get water and froze at the doorway. Jake was on FaceTime, his phone propped against a glass. Rachel's face filled the screen. He was smiling in a way I hadn't seen in months, eyes lit up, hand absently twirling his hair like he used to do on our first dates. "I always liked you more," he said, voice low. "I only stayed with Dorothy because you kept ghosting me. But now that you're back..." He chuckled. "I'm not missing my chance again." Rachel giggled. "You're awful." My world shattered in that moment. The glass slipped from my hand and shattered against the floor. Both their heads turned toward the sound. Jake's eyes widened. "Dorothy!" But I didn't wait. I turned and walked down the hall, my body moving before my mind caught up. In the bedroom, I pulled out a duffel bag, stuffed it with clothes, grabbed my keys and laptop. He followed, voice sharp with panic. "Dorothy, wait, it's not what you think." I zipped the bag without looking at him. My hands shook, but my voice was steady when I said, "It's exactly what I think." And then I walked out. That night, I slept in my car in the parking garage of my office building. Not because I didn't have friends, not because I didn't have places to go, but because I needed silence. Silence where no one could lie to me. Silence where I could finally hear the truth. And in that silence, for the first time in 2.5 years, I felt calm. The morning after I left, I sat in my car watching the sun creep over the skyline. I hadn't slept, but I didn't feel tired. I felt hollow, like someone had scooped out my insides and left me with silence where my heartbeat used to be. Jake's text had started around midnight. "Dorothy, where are you? Dorothy, come home. Dorothy, please, let's talk." By 3 a.m., the messages had turned desperate. By 5, apologetic. By 7, quiet. I didn't answer a single one. That evening, I went back. Not because I wanted to reconcile, but because I needed him to say it out loud. I needed to look into his eyes and hear the truth in his own voice, not filtered through Rachel's laugh or Megan's whispers. When I opened the door, Jake was on the couch, hair messy, hoodie slouched, scrolling through his phone like nothing had happened. He looked up, startled, then tried to smile. "There you are. God, I was worried." "I needed a night to think," I interrupted. My voice was calm, too calm. He shifted uncomfortably. "About what?" I gestured toward the couch. "Sit." He hesitated, but obeyed. I stayed standing. My bag still hung from my shoulder. "I want to ask you something," I said, steady, almost clinical. "And I want the real answer." He nodded warily. "Okay. Are you still in love with me?" The question hung in the air like smoke. His eyes darted, calculating. "Dorothy, of course I care about you." "That's not what I asked." His throat worked. He looked away. "I don't know. Things have been weird. We've both felt it." "And what about Rachel?" I asked flatly. That froze him. His eyes snapped back to me, wide. "What about her?" I didn't blink. "I heard you, at Megan's, and again last night. You told her I was just someone you fell back on." Jake's face drained of color. His lips parted, closed, then parted again. Finally he muttered, "That was a private conversation." "Do you deny saying it?" Silence. I nodded slowly. "Right." He shot to his feet, defensive. "It's not what it sounded like." I didn't move. "You said you only stayed because she ghosted you, that I was your backup plan." He raked his hands through his hair. "I was confused, Dorothy. I didn't know what I wanted. Rachel's been in and out of my life forever." "And I was what?" I cut in. "Your emotional storage unit in between breakups?" His voice sharpened. "That's not fair." "What's not fair," I said quietly, "is how long I stood by you while you played pretend. I believed in you when no one else did. I helped you get back on your feet, and the whole time you were just waiting for someone better to show up." "I never said she was better. You didn't have to." We stood there in the dim light of our living room, the hum of the refrigerator, the only sound between us. His face crumpled like he wanted to cry, scream, argue, all at once. But all he managed was a whisper. "So, what now?" I adjusted the strap of my bag. "Now?" I'm done, Jake. You made your choice. I just finally heard it out loud. His voice broke. You're not even going to try? Not even going to work through this? I laughed bitterly. I worked through this for 2.5 years, alone. You were just waiting for someone else to come pick you up. Dorothy, you're blowing this out of proportion. Please, just give me a chance to explain. You already did. I turned toward the door. Wait! His voice rose, desperate now. You're just going to walk out? I paused, hand on the handle, and looked back. You walked out first, Jake. I'm just catching up. Then I opened the door, stepped into the hallway, and shut it behind me. No slam, no dramatic exit, just finality. I didn't go back. Not for my clothes, not for the books stacked on my nightstand, not for the coffee mug I loved. He could keep it all. That night, I lay in the quiet of a friend's guest room, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in years, the air didn't feel heavy. The silence didn't feel hostile. It felt clean. Jake thought he'd broken me, but what he didn't realize was that he'd set me free. The first night I stayed at my friend's guest room, I didn't unpack. I just set my bag on the floor, lay on the unfamiliar bed, and let the silence swallow me whole. It wasn't the kind of silence I used to fear. The tense pauses with Jake, the silence heavy with things unsaid. This silence was clean, empty, safe. And in that emptiness, for the first time in years, I could breathe. Jake didn't let me breathe for long. The text came first. Dorothy, please, let's talk. You're misunderstanding everything. I didn't mean it like that. When I didn't reply, they turned into voicemails, his voice shifting from calm to frantic, from angry to pleading. Dorothy, you can't just disappear on me. We've been together too long for you to throw it away like this. Call me back, please. I didn't. By the second day, the emails started. Paragraphs long. Apologies tangled with excuses. He said he panicked. He said he didn't mean what I heard. He said Rachel was just a phase, that I was the one he truly cared about. Reading his words felt like staring into a cracked mirror, distorted, desperate reflections of a man who had already lost. I closed my laptop and didn't open it again for the rest of the night. The silence became my weapon, though I didn't mean it that way at first. I wasn't trying to punish him. I just needed the quiet. I needed a space where his voice couldn't twist my thoughts anymore. Every morning I woke up and reminded myself, don't answer, don't explain, don't let him drag you back into the loop. And every morning I got a little stronger. Healing didn't happen in some dramatic burst. It crept in slowly, disguised as small choices. The first week I forced myself to go outside. Just a walk around the block, headphones in, the late summer air brushing against my skin. For the first time in months, I noticed the world beyond Jake's orbit, the children biking down the street, the scent of jasmine blooming from a neighbor's garden, the sound of my own footsteps without his beside me. The second week, I went back to the gym. Not out of spite, not to sculpt some revenge body, but because I wanted to feel strong in my own skin again. Each mile on the treadmill burned away another layer of numbness. The third week, I pulled my old camera from the closet. Photography had been my escape once, catching light, framing stories in stillness. But Jake used to roll his eyes when I carried my camera everywhere. You look like a tourist, he'd say. I stopped bringing it out eventually. Now I dusted it off, slung it around my neck, and walked through the park. The lens became my therapy. Every photo proof that I could still see beauty, even in the aftermath of betrayal. Jake's absence should have felt like loss. Instead, it felt like space. Space to breathe. Space to exist without shrinking myself. Of course, mutual friends trickled in with updates I never asked for. Jake's not doing well, one said, pity in her voice. Rachel ghosted him again. 2 months and she was gone. I nodded, sipping my drink. That sounds about right. Inside, I felt nothing. Not triumph, not pity, just indifference. Karma had a way of handling itself. Then, one evening, a month after I walked out, I met Ethan. It wasn't some grand, cinematic entrance. No fireworks, no instant love story. Just a quiet conversation at a mutual friend's barbecue. He was nothing like Jake. He wasn't the loudest in the room. He didn't demand attention. He was steady, calm, almost unassuming. But when we talked, he actually listened. He asked questions and remembered my answers. He didn't check his phone once. That night, as I left, he said, "You have a way of noticing things other people miss." It was such a simple thing, but it struck me. Jake had never once told me that. Ethan didn't try to impress me. He didn't make promises. He just showed up, consistently, quietly. And for the first time in months, I felt something that wasn't anger or grief or numbness. I felt peace. Jake, of course, wasn't done. Another email landed in my inbox a week later. Dorothy, I know you probably won't read this, but I just want you to know I get it now. I messed up something real because I was chasing something that never existed. Rachel was never what I thought she was. You were. You were the only one who ever showed up for me. Please, just give me a chance to make it right. I read it once, then deleted it, because the truth was, I didn't need his apology anymore. I wasn't waiting for him to recognize my worth. I had already recognized it myself. Time didn't heal everything overnight, but it gave me distance, and distance gave me clarity. By the second month without Jake, the frantic texts and emails slowed. Silence settled back in, and I let it stay. The less I heard from him, the lighter I felt. But silence also left room for me. Room to rebuild. Room to fill my life with things that had nothing to do with him. I started small. Weekends became my sanctuary. Saturday mornings, I'd lace up my sneakers and go hiking. There was something about the dirt under my shoes, the ache in my calves, the way sunlight filtered through the trees. It reminded me I was still alive, that I could carry myself somewhere new, one step at a time. Afternoons, I pulled out my paints. Canvases leaned against the walls of my small apartment, splattered with colors I hadn't touched in years. Jake never liked the smell of acrylics, said it gave him headaches. So I stopped painting. Now I painted in silence, letting the brush move however it wanted. The result didn't matter. What mattered was that every stroke was mine. Nights were the hardest. That was when memories crept in, whispering what-ifs and maybes. But even those nights grew easier when I let myself dream about something beyond Jake. About someone who might see me without needing me to shrink, to wait, to beg for a fraction of love. That someone turned out to be Ethan. Our paths kept crossing after that barbecue. A group dinner here, a mutual friend's game night there. At first we just talked. About books, about work, about why he thought cats secretly ruled the world. He wasn't flashy. He didn't tell wild stories to hold the spotlight. He just listened, really listened, in a way that made me feel seen instead of scrutinized. When he finally asked if I wanted to grab coffee, he added, "No pressure, just two people talking." And for the first time in years, I said yes without hesitation. Coffee turned into walks through the park. Walks turned into late-night conversations that stretched until dawn. There were no games, no guessing where I stood. Ethan made it clear from the beginning. He valued honesty, not drama. I told him bits of my past, careful not to drown him in details. He didn't push. He didn't flinch. He just nodded and said, "Take your time. I'm not going anywhere." It wasn't a whirlwind romance. It was steady, gentle, the kind of love that grew in quiet spaces. And I realized how exhausting it had been to constantly prove my worth to Jake, to fight for scraps of attention while he kept one eye on someone else. With Ethan, I didn't have to prove anything. Just being myself was enough. Meanwhile, Jake's unraveling reached me through whispers. At a mutual friend's birthday, someone leaned across the table and said, "You know, Jake and Rachel didn't last. She ghosted him again. 2 months and she was gone." I stirred my drink and said, "That sounds like Rachel." The friend gave me a cautious look. "Sorry, I just thought you'd want to know." But I didn't, because the truth was I didn't feel anything. Not vindication, not pity, not longing, just emptiness. Jake was becoming a stranger, someone I used to know. Of course he tried again. They always do. Another email came, longer this time, rambling, emotional. He said he missed me, that he didn't realize how much I meant to him until I was gone, that he was confused when he said those things, that he didn't mean it the way it sounded. Of course he didn't. Of course it only sounded bad now that he realized I wasn't waiting on the sidelines anymore. I didn't respond, because the truth was I didn't miss him, not really. What I missed was the version of him I thought was real, the version I had built in my head, brick by brick, out of hope and loyalty. But that version had died the night I heard him say I was just a backup plan, and I had no intention of resurrecting it. Ethan and I kept moving forward, slow and steady. He never once made me feel like a placeholder. He never made me question whether he'd choose me tomorrow. One night, as we sat on a park bench watching the city lights flicker across the water, he turned to me and said, "You know, you don't have to carry it alone." "Carry what?" I asked. "The weight of someone else's mistakes." I blinked, caught off guard, but then, for the first time, I let myself smile without bitterness. Maybe I'm learning to put it down. He reached for my hand, not to rescue me, not to fix me, but simply to hold it, to remind me I wasn't alone anymore. And in that quiet moment, I realized I hadn't just lost Jake. I had lost the version of myself who believed I needed him to feel whole. And that loss? That was the best thing that had ever happened to me. By the third month of silence, I thought maybe Jake had finally given up. The emails stopped. The texts stopped. The nights felt quieter. The mornings lighter. But people like Jake never let go quietly. It started small, an unknown number with a text that read, "Hey, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I just wanted to say I'm happy for you. I saw a photo of you and that guy. He seems nice." I didn't reply. An hour later, "I've been thinking a lot about us, about how I ruined something solid chasing a fantasy. I don't expect anything. I'd really like to talk." Still no reply. The next day, he sent a picture, a selfie. No words, just his face, eyes tired, forcing the same smirk that once charmed me. Blocked. When Jake realized I wasn't taking the bait, he turned to other tactics. Megan, his friend, messaged me. "Dorothy, I know things ended badly, but he's really not doing well. Maybe just talk to him?" Another mutual friend followed a week later. "He says he made the biggest mistake of his life. You don't owe him anything, but I thought you should know." But that was the thing. They were right. I didn't owe him anything. And what Jake couldn't stand wasn't my anger, it was my indifference. For the first time in his life, his performance had no audience. Then came the night fate decided to play cruel comedian. A mutual friend's engagement party. Ethan and I had been dating for 8 months by then. We weren't flashy, we weren't loud. We were steady, grounded, and content in our own orbit. We walked in hand, and for a moment, I forgot Jake might even be there, until I saw him. He stood at the bar, alone, nursing a drink, his hair longer, his face thinner, like someone who hadn't been sleeping. When his eyes met mine, he froze. I didn't flinch. I just nodded politely, then turned back to Ethan, who was already making me laugh about something trivial. But 15 minutes later, Jake was at my side. "Can I talk to you?" His voice cracked, low enough only I could hear. I glanced at Ethan. He squeezed my hand, then nodded. "I'll be at the dessert table." He kissed my cheek, an act so simple, but it said everything. He trusted me. He didn't need to perform for anyone. Jake and I stepped out onto the patio. The night air was cool, string lights glowing above us. For a moment, he just stared, like he didn't recognize the woman in front of him. "I wasn't sure you'd even show up," he said finally. "It's our friend's engagement. Why wouldn't I?" He looked down, chuckled nervously. "You look different." "I am." Silence stretched. His eyes darted toward the window where Ethan stood, chatting easily with strangers. "So that's him," Jake muttered. "That's Ethan," I corrected. He swallowed hard. "I guess you saw everything I sent. Or maybe you didn't." "I saw it." Another pause. He rubbed his palms together, fidgeting like a boy caught in a lie. "Dorothy, I messed up. I know that sounds small compared to what I did, but I just need you to know I did love you. I was just too immature to recognize it." I studied him for a long moment. "Maybe. Or maybe you just love the way I made you feel, not me." His eyes widened, stung. "I've changed," he rushed. "I've been in therapy. I'm trying to understand why I sabotaged something so good. I know it doesn't fix the past, but I needed to tell you in person." I nodded slowly. "You once told Megan I was your backup plan, that you'd only stayed with me until Rachel came back. Do you remember?" His face twisted with regret. "I know, and I regret saying that every single day." "I don't." He blinked. "You don't?" "No." I turned slightly, glancing through the glass at Ethan, who was laughing with a group, calm and grounded in a way Jake had never been. Because it taught me the most important lesson of my life. Never settle for someone who needs to lose you, to value you. Jake's lips parted, but no words came out. His shoulders slumped. "She seems nice," he muttered, nodding toward Ethan. "She is, and she's honest. She doesn't need attention from other men to feel worthy. She doesn't treat love like a contest." He looked at me like he wanted to argue, maybe to beg, but all he managed was a small, broken nod. I adjusted my jacket. "Take care of yourself, Jake." And with that, I turned, walked back inside, and into the warmth of the room where Ethan was waiting. When he saw me, he smiled like I was the only person there. And for the first time, I believed it. After the engagement party, Jake never reached out again. No more texts, no more desperate emails, no mutual friends probing on his behalf. He finally understood. He no longer had access to me, not to my time, not to my energy, not to the love I once gave so freely. And that was the real ending. People often think closure comes from an apology, from hearing the person who broke you admit they were wrong. But real closure is quieter. It's when you no longer need their words to make sense of what happened. For me, closure came in small, ordinary moments. It came in the mornings when I woke without heaviness in my chest. It came in the calm of my apartment, where peace lived now instead of suspicion. It came in the laughter Ethan and I shared over burnt pancakes on Sunday mornings. Healing wasn't loud. It didn't look like revenge. It looked like peace. 2 months after that party, I was cleaning out an old drawer when I found it. An old sticky note Jake had written years ago. A silly little thing, folded at the corner, the ink smudged. "You're my favorite safe space. Don't ever change." I stared at it for a moment. Back then, I had clung to those words like proof that I mattered, that I was chosen. Now I smiled once, softly, then crumpled it and tossed it into the trash. Because I had changed. I wasn't someone's safe space while they waited for a thrill ride. I wasn't someone's backup plan, there just in case. I was my own safe space. And because I chose myself first, Ethan could choose me too. Ethan and I eventually moved in together. A modest little place with more plants than furniture at first. We argued playfully about whether the cat should sleep on the bed, spent weekends painting walls, and laughing over crooked picture frames. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a fairy tale, but it was real. And it was enough. Sometimes friends ask if I ever hear about Jake. I don't. A mutual acquaintance once mentioned he'd moved back in with his mom for a while, that he switched jobs again, that he was keeping a low profile. But none of it stuck in my mind. I don't hate him. I don't wish him pain. I just don't care anymore. He became a lesson I outgrew. A name that used to matter, now just background noise. Like a song you once loved but haven't played in years. What matters now is the life I built after him. One evening, as Ethan and I sat on our balcony with mugs of tea, watching the sun dip below the horizon, he leaned his head against mine and said, "I'm glad we found each other." I smiled, not because I felt lucky, but because I finally understood. I hadn't found him by accident. I found him